Hi everyone, welcome back into the classroom. I thought I would paint basically roses out onto a plinth. I get a lot of questions from you about blending with acrylic. So in this painting, I'm going to show you painting acrylic on acrylic and acrylic on an open acrylic, which is one that'll stay wet for a long time, and showing you some of the differences in it. Now, what I have here, this is just a board I had, and I had started it out this color, added some other things, and life got in the way, and so now I'm going to bring it back and I'm just going to repaint it. This is a 1/4-inch sheet of Baltic birch, which is one that I really like. It is 20 inches this way and 16 inches this way, because I'm going to set some flowers. Let me grab this real quick. And I got this frame for it. It's a beautiful frame, and I got it up at basically the Michaels up in Cheyenne, and my wife got it for me. I thought it'd be a beautiful picture, a nice frame for what I want to do with these old world roses onto a plinth. Now, I had painted this one a long time ago, and matter of fact, about 7.5 years ago, and I sold it right away. It's very popular, and I want to just use that for some inspiration. We'll have some fun. I'll talk to you a little bit about design, color, techniques, and how to paint these roses. Okay, so let's get going with it. For the colors I have out today, my standard YouTube palette, these colors are listed in the video description down below. These are the Heritage MultiMedia acrylics. They, on every single video on my channel, this is all I use, is these acrylics, and I show you how to slow down the drying time, speed up the drying time, paint acrylic techniques, use them like an oil and stuff, and it's just a lot of fun. So I'm going to take and I'm going to be using the Fusion brushes. These are a specialized soft brush that I designed many, many years ago, probably close to 15 years ago. They're wonderful. And they do everything from watercolor to blending techniques to all different kinds of painting techniques. This is a 2-inch wide version of it. This is the extender medium. This slows down the drying time, but it also makes the colors thin because it's almost a consistency of water. And then right out here is the Matisse Deravan Open Medium, and it works fantastic with the Heritage acrylics. Not all acrylics are the same, so these mediums don't work with all acrylics. You have to test to make sure, okay? So I'm going to start by giving some coats of light color over the surface, and so I'm going to take some white. I'm going to add some extender medium to it. I love the grays that come, and especially the grays that are on that that frame. The real antique gray comes from basically burnt sienna green and blue. And so I'm going to use some of those tones into the painting here as I start this out. And we'll add some extender. And I'm just going to push this right over the painting here. And I'm going to thin it out slightly here, so that, a little bit of the original color showing through won't hurt. I'm going to paint this whole background. So what I'm doing here now is just giving myself something to work into. So when a lot of times when I don't know exactly where I want to go, I give myself a real light coat of a color or something onto the surface that gives me something to work my painting, my colors into. I can soften it off if I want, or I can leave it more impressionistic if I want. So I'll just set this, just poke a little extender in this, set it down there for a few minutes, and let's grab a brush, and we'll help design a bit of our composition. So I'm gonna look for some shadows and some green, some blue, and some burnt sienna, and you can see it's darker here, okay? And what I want to do is just come in, like when I have a plinth, I'm going to bring the light in this way, up like this. Maybe my center of interest flower I will put right about in here, and maybe I'll turn maybe another one, a little different than that one there. I'll turn another bigger one here towards us. So I'll turn this one up and around like this, okay? This one will come at us slightly. I think that would be pretty. And we'll bring maybe another bud or something right out here. I like to work on threes and stuff too, so maybe we'll turn one rose back up this way, and then we'll fill in maybe a couple of rosebuds or something like that. The board here is more of a rectangle, so I want to keep my design in towards the rectangle. So maybe we might put another, like a little juvenile rose there, and maybe a rosebud or something coming out right here. That would make a more rectangle surface. So that gives me kind of an idea here. And you know, when you're to visualize roses, those of you that are beginners and stuff, and I have the 30 Days of Roses and a lot of beginning lessons. And if you put up there when you search my channel, if you just put in beginning roses, you'll come up with a whole playlist of beginning roses where I show you how to do beginning roses and how to, if you run into problems and stuff, how to fix those. Okay, so look for those. But in beginning roses, to visualize something, let's just take a little dark, maybe a little dark violet here into some of this color here. Okay, I love to use violets because they're cool, so some of violets into this. A rose is basically 3 circles like you've seen me. It has the center here, and then I lighten my pressure and I do small half circles, and notice where my hand is on my brush. It's way back here. This keeps the tip of the brush soft, and so I don't deposit it, you know, too much color. And so when you look at that, okay, that's the center. The other circle of it is the bowl, and since the light's going to be coming up here to the top, the real heavy shadow of the bowl will be down to the lower side here. And so this will be the bowl, and then this other outer circle here will be the reaching petals. So I can shape a rose pretty easy. Now, if I add a little extender to this, this will stay wet for a long time. Into a rose coming at us, now we imagine it kind of like a little hurricane here, or what I like to do is a cinnamon roll. Okay, so you think of a tightly wound little cinnamon roll here. That's the gooey center right there, and then it comes out and just lighten your pressure coming out and around. And then we'll have the actual bowl shadow that you see here might be coming out through here. So we'll put a little more dark right out through here, which will anchor that rose down. And then we'll have some lighter petals. Now, these other petals I like to push in and out of the center here, just like that. So these are what I call the reaching petals. They reach out from the bowl of the rose. So we'll have that. Buds, juvenile roses will have more of an oval shape to them. So we'll just leave these buds here as an oval shape. Just a real quick oval shape. Here, this one, the center is turned back, so we won't see too much of the center here, and we'll smear it out a little bit into that color. See how easy that is to smear out like that? And what it does is, see, I'm taking it, it's darker here than it is here, and the rule of good color is that an object recedes from the center of interest, it becomes more like the background. So when I push like this, I'm actually bringing up more of the background and causing that rose there to recede. See how it's starting to go back here? So I will still have a bit of the bowl right here, maybe a bit, and it'll be low. If the light is top, then the shadow will be low. Now this just gives me an idea. Maybe another backwards turned one right here. We don't quite know yet. That one isn't talking to me yet, but that'll give me an idea, okay? And so I set up, and now see, you can see it's really easy to work into that wet, and this will stay wet for a good, because I didn't add that much to it, it'll stay wet for a good hour here. Allow me to work into it. But I want to show you some acrylic techniques also, so we'll let some of that dry. Now, I am just going to start my light and dark shadow of it. Let's take a little bit of the burnt sienna and a little bit of green, maybe a touch of violet into that, cool that down a little bit. Let's work some of our shadow that we know. You know you're going to have darker shadow in here, right? And so because light's going to come here, I'm going to have darker shadow. I'm going to go even darker yet, but I will have some of this shadow right up in here. And I used to do I did so many years of realism in painting, and I was a big advocate for getting your shadows and lights correct and your light sources and stuff correct. So you as you're coming in here, the light, depending on where your light is, the shadow won't appear up in here. It'll be softer, but you'll get it really, really dark right up in here. Matter of fact, I'm going to go to a little bit smaller painting brush. Let's grab my 3/4 inch is my favorite painting size here. And it has, from that landscape you see back there, that's a landscape. I just finished that yesterday afternoon. And I am not sure quite yet what to do with it. I filmed the whole painting of it. It took 7.5 hours. So, but I'm not quite sure where it's going to go into our classroom. Maybe some of it can go up here on YouTube, but probably up into the classroom. But I left a little bit of paint in there as dry, and so I use this, which is a hand sanitizer. And hand sanitizer is about 60% alcohol, which is what cleans your brushes really, really nice. And so it just cleans out the brush. It'll also clean up the handle here, see? It'll also make your brushes and everything look new. Then I give that just a real quick rinse with water, and I'm back to a new brush again. And then poke it into a little extender so I don't have, you don't want to leave any of that hand sanitizer in there because it'll pull a hole in your colors. But let's just work a little darker here, a little violet, a little blue, a little darker color right back out in here. And look at how that just jumps some of those colors, see? And I like to use like this 3/4 inch because it'll give me, and you can see a little bit of colors, different colors coming out, and I like that. But it'll give me some different kind of what I call brush calligraphy, and that's what I'm looking for. Different brush calligraphy here. And maybe let's just take some of this right up here into this. We'll add some extender. We'll work these tones together, so maybe we'll work a bit of this tone out here. And, you know, I'm not always real sure. Sometimes I use my paper towel like this and just soften that tone out. I like that little bit of blue in there. I love the, you know, I'm a big advocate of Impressionism now. I really like Impressionistic painting. But I want to make sure that I capture some of the darker tones of that ring, of this outer part of the frame. I think that would be really pretty into the painting. So I want to make sure I get some of those colors, and that's all going to be right in here. These burnt siennas and greens and colors and some blues and some violets right in here. I want to make sure I get some of those tones right out in there. I'll just pull some of this out. Let some of this just, you know, take it out a bit. And I like verticals and horizontals, strong verticals, horizontals. Take some of it off. I love the impressionism of the paper towel that you can get through painting, you know, using it to hair like this. And let's just push a bit of this. This will, when I go this way, this elongates the look of the composition, which I like to do on this. It makes it, in other words, makes it more horizontal here. And I like that. I'll just drop some of that out. And that looks, you know, just, and I might come in here and add just more stuff, more colors. I love, like I'll take a strong burnt sienna, nice warm, strong burnt sienna, maybe touch it right in here, and maybe just carry that right out through here. And it'll emulate, not perfect, but it'll emulate, you know, the ground line and stuff like that, and just give you a different look. And I like doing that kind of stuff. I play a little bit here. That little rose we had back there is almost gone. Let's put a bit more burnt sienna right in there. And let's grab a little blue, a little burnt sienna, a little green, a little red violet, nice dark here. And we'll just pull some of that out. So sometimes I leave it very mottled like this. Yeah, just love the colors. Oh, I love that green. That green tone just came out there. See, that's the impressionistic part of it that I really like. Let's take just a bit darker right in here. This is where I want my center of interest, working right between these two flowers here. So you can see this is still wet because I added that extender in there. And you would have a real dark contact shadow. Maybe we'll add that right in there here, even if this soften that edge of that rose there. Not quite sure, but I like those colors. Now, let's also come in here and give some light. So we'll warm a little yellow into some white right here, make a lighter value, and softly apply some light here. Work that out, work that right into there. And I love to leave some heavy marks of it. But, you know, I'm not sure just how much brush work to leave into this yet, so we'll be a little cautious yet. So I'll push in some of this light. We can always add a lot more. But this gives us the idea of light coming in through the painting here. That's what I want. Just the impression of light here coming into the painting. And we can darken down, take it down if you want. But, you know, I like to keep it kind of simple, but we could darken down just a little bit here. Take just some of these colors, a little bit of that burnt sienna, so it's just a touch warm here. And just darken down a bit. Work that through here. Just so you see that light. You know, maybe we'll pull just a bit of the, I love the big brush too. Just a bit more of this right up through like that. That's pretty. That works that color down through here, but it quits here real quick. I mean, too quick. So we'll just drag some light just a little bit further back through that, see? And so I'll get this crossing of the values here, and it just makes a real interesting plane. You can put a little bit up here just to say you did it. There, if you're studying realism, there would be a through light. This is not that important, but there would be a through light right through there. But that's enough of a real good start for my roses. Sometimes I take it a little far, but I'll probably want to develop some streaks of yellow, some warms, depending on how I paint these roses here, right up into this area here, and just some real bang of light. You can see on that one there, I put a real bang of light right in there. All right, but let's go in and let's paint this, our main, one of these roses right here. I want this white one. So I'm going to take some of the light colors that I have right here. This has a little extender. Now, if you want a lot of working time, you can add this. This is the open medium. This gives you a long working time. I am more of an acrylic painter. Those of you that watch all the roses and stuff I paint, I do use open medium from time to time because it gives me a different look. The open medium here, as you can see, keeps the colors really thick, whereas the extender keeps the colors really thin. You see the difference here. And the open medium has actually a little bit slower drying time than the extender does, so it's fantastic. But I'm going to put some light right in here. Okay. Now all of this is wet. So I put in a lot of light here, and all this is wet. And so what I like to do when I do that is I'll smear these together. I call it blur. I blur in together. I want the light to hit the front of the rose, and I'll blur down into, you can see all of this other color is wet, see? Now I can also soften it if I don't want to use my finger, just by taking some of the color off my brush and just pulling it through this way and softening out the rose here this way. And so what I'm going to do is build up the front of the rose. I'm going to reset the center here in just a minute. I'm going to open this rose up a little bit more. It's kind of closed down, so I'll open it up a bit more. But you can see here's the bowl of the rose. That's the bowl, and then I'll work some petals to the outside. Now, I want to get some other colors in there. I want to get like a warmer yellow right up into the light side of the rose. I like some yellows up into there. And I want to get some cooler violets down into the shadow side of the rose, down into the shadows. I love the violets and stuff. Now, let's come back let me just loosen up the center here with not the real light, but just a soft light. Let me just loosen up this center here. It's not the light value that I used on the front. Okay, now I'll come back, this time red violet, a little bit of quinacridone, maybe a bit of open medium in it. Okay, and I'll start again, push this up and out here. At just open, and I'll work on coming down and opening up the front of the rose a bit more here than I want. Let's go a little darker, maybe even a touch of green in it, which will cause it to tone down and darken, because they're, they start to head to those complements, and that's kind of a pretty color. Maybe a little dose of red or some quinacridone in there to break up and maybe get a bit of a more intense color in there, just as a difference. Now I can take some light, maybe even a touch of yellow, these in here, just a touch of light, and just kind of work around in here, small, circle, and that will give the impression of some inside turning petals, which is what I want. I'm also going to come up, as I come up to the front, I'll come up here to the warm, a little yellow, and into the white, and let's draw a petal here right across the front, and I'll pull down this time. So if you imagine a stem coming in, the stem's going to come in right about in there, and so I'm going to, all these petals that are up here into the front all attach up here at the stem. So I'm just going to pull some light color down here. Okay, just like that. Maybe push it around a bit. I like to use the brush, but I love to use my fingers because the fingers are just very casual. They cause me to do a little more casual work on it. Let's put in a petal now. Will come into the bowl. These I call the reaching petals, and I'll pull in towards the bowl, maybe push in and out a bit. I want to keep this first run of the first idea of petals here very soft, because that causes them to recede back. I'm going to want to build up even more in here, but just not yet. Let's take a bit of this light, just a little bit on the corner. You can see it's just a bit on the corner of my brush, and I roll over onto that corner, and that's what I'll draw outside petals with, and I'll just lift the pressure. Sometimes I'll just wipe that off of my brush now and just pull in and softly, and just leave that little bit of edge, which leaves you a petal edge there. And I'll pick up a little bit more. Let's just draw another little petal in here. Wipe your brush, get rid of that X. Sometimes you can pull out as well here, but that will leave me the idea of a little petal edge there, see? Now, right up in here, this color is really thick. See, it's really, really thick, and that gets difficult to paint on. So a lot of times I let it start to tack up a bit, but before that happens, I'm gonna work a little more color, because I want a little more action here into the center of this rose. So I'm gonna work a little more light color, just a little bit more going on. So the same thing I did out here with that, I'll put a little edge here and maybe draw some petals, just some ideas of some petals and stuff coming around there. Okay, and if you lose that center dark too much, just go back and redeposit it. It's really easy to work the roses like that. And I love that bit of bright quinacridone in there. That is really kind of pretty. And so, and see, I kind of just smear it around, and as long as you're always using that rounding shape, you're in good to work into the center of that rose. That rounding shape will always work for you. Okay, let's put just a touch more dark right in there. There we go. A little bit more on that shadow there. Okay, that's kind of neat. And then I'm going to build up now a bit more right up here in the front. Maybe another little edge of the light here, pulling down here. Push up and down with that and just kind of soften that petal a bit. here. And this is really, really wet. And for a beginner, it's hard to paint when it gets so wet. So I'm going to let this tack up for just a minute, which is perfectly good to do. And I'm going to go over here and set the shape of this red one. So I'll use some reds. Let's make this a reddish one. And red, maybe more of a pink. So I'll use some reds, some dark red. You could have a little bit of green in it if you want it a little darker. But let's just set that reddish tone around. See, that's real pretty. I love that openness of that. That's a real pretty red. Let's get a bit of that warmth right in there. And this is what I really like to work, a couple roses at a time, because one will affect the other one here. And let's go more towards a pink. Now this will give you a real warm pink. The quinacridone will give you a real cool pink. And they're quite different. If you don't know, just take the both together and work yourself a kind of a pinkish color here. And you can push that around. So this is, I want to leave that a little more open. And what I'm doing now is just looking for some colors. These don't have to be absolutely perfect colors yet, but I'm looking for some color variations here into this. I'm going to have this mostly white with a little bit of pink to it. So I'm adding some pink right now. And then we'll get that white in here in just a bit. Let's get a bit darker right over here. The shadows. And this is a little stiff right out here, which is the way I like it when I draw the roses. When I get too much color, it moves really easy. And I don't always like that. It's harder. You can, sometimes I will paint it and it gives you a beautiful look, but it is more difficult to paint when your paint is so thick and wet. It gets harder to paint. Okay, let's get a little lighter, maybe a little warmer color, because we're going to go whitish rose, white and pink rose here. And we'll start the bowl here. And since it's coming at us, the bowl will be more compressed, won't be as much showing on the bowl here. And we'll also have some of the light petals coming down here to the outside. So it'll be a little different. Let's just soften that line a bit, just like that. And that's what I love to do, is push those colors around. So we'll just push that right around into the shape of a little petal there, see? And I like that. A little open medium or a little extender medium, okay? Both of them will work. Let's drop some of this, like maybe this is a petal coming in. See, I'll push, and what I'm doing is pushing that red and that white kind of together here and softening it out until I get a look that I kind of like. And I do like, sometimes I'll get that pushing motion like that, and it gives a lot of motion to the petals, and I like that. Let's just pull one kind of across and maybe in and out, because the bowl is shorter here, because the rose is looking at us. So the bowl is shorter. Does that make sense? So we'll push an edge here. Down over here will be mostly shadow, so we won't go there yet. Let's warm this up a bit too. Maybe a bit of yellow, some warmth right up in here, which would be the light side of the rose, right up there, okay? Yeah, that'll work. And yeah, let's take this, we'll let that tack a minute, and let's go hit this lighter. Now see how it sticks more? Do you see that? How it sticks more when I push that around? That's what I like. If it's too wet, it doesn't stick as easy, and you end up having just pushing it around a lot, and it's actually harder to paint here. Let's open up this edge here. So that's the bowl, and then this is a little reaching petal coming out right there, coming out of it. And we could close off the bowl if we put another little petal right across like that. That's one way to do the rose. Maybe another little petal coming down so the bowl this is a reaching petal coming outside the bowl right there like that, see? And all kinds of ways to paint them. You know, you're in control of it here. And I'll just pull down. Let's put just a bit of another little motion or movement right in here. Just coming in. Sometimes I don't do very much at all. Sometimes I'll come back. Let's come back with a little red and that quinacridone and push that right around in there again. And see how that just gives you a little more movement, some softer movement, some smaller. And each time you do that movement, see, you get a little more movement there into those petals, into that center. Let's put a little dark back in there. There we go. And that's kind of a real pretty little center there. A little dark right out here into that. Yeah, sometimes a bit of that yellow and that violet right in there. It's just real pretty. Let's get some lighter whites here. We'll push this lighter petal right out here. Maybe that one's going to come right in there. So it has some nice pink on it. I want a bit more white on it, so I'll pick up a bit more white and just strike that white. And then I'll manipulate the white, pushing it right where I want it. If I push hard, I lift it off and I expose the shadow underneath, and that's what gives me that beautiful little edge. There's just you'll see that I paint roses 1,000 different ways. Here, these are just real light taps. And I want to keep these light taps right in here like this, but short of the bowl. I want the viewer to always see the bowl here, where that bowl is, because that helps them identify the shape of the rose. We could pull this in a bit here. That just gives a different kind of movement to the rose there. That's kind of pretty. Maybe let's put an extra little petal right out here. Because you could do that, see? And you could have those petals kind of collide. It's okay. Here. Just the look of them there. There's the afternoon train. Here. Let's just build up this light. Maybe a bit of it pulling up like this. Just smear that around a bit there. Okay. And maybe, you know, if I feel like I got a little too light, I can just take a little bit of yellow, see, and just push that, lift off some of that white with the yellow here, and push that around. And that's what I really like when I start to build roses, is I'll push multiple colors around. Maybe I'll take that little edge again, right here, and draw a nice little, not a real light petal, but the idea of a light petal right there. And see, I draw petals around, so I'm just giving the ideas of some petals. And you can push them around to give some of the shape and stuff to your rose. Petal it up as much as you want. Draw a little petal, and then just lightly push it around here. Let's just pull a light one right here. Here. Here we go. Push that around a bit. That's kind of neat. I want to, I'm going to use some extender here and a bit of my quinacridone and a little bit of the red violet and reset just a bit more of this shadow back here. Because I love that, because this is picking up some of these colors coming from that other rose here. And then I'll pick up a little heavier light and just pull some of this in. See, I want to, you know, you've got to be able to see the light source on your rose. So I want to be able to see that light happening right in here. Let's pink this, not quite as light as that white I just put on. Pink it up a bit right in there. And I want to get a heavier light. Now see, I'm painting this one because this one's going to control that other one right there. So I want to get a little more light right in here. right up in here, up onto this front edges and stuff like that of the rose there. And if I feel I got too much, then I just take a little shadow on my brush and I lift off so I can see that bowl. But I like sometimes this, leave little marks. You know, there's a little marks that give a lot of interest to your painting. A little movement. Let's put a bit of a lighter little petal here. Kind of different coming out. This is fluffing up the rose a bit. Let's take a little yellow and some of our violet here and just lift off. So we see where that bowl is. That's kind of neat. And but maybe a little heavier light here. Pulling back in. Here, like that. Just, and sometimes I should let that tack up a bit more, but sometimes I'll just like put a little chisel in there, and you know, that little bit of chisel looks like another petal coming in there, see? And so it's just like a little chisel of the brush here. Or this I have enough room to turn it on its side and drop in another petal right in there like that. That's kind of pretty. I might want to increase the motion, the down motion here, like this, rounding a bit, so your feeling is rounding into the bowl. Does that make sense? So I'm always, everything I'm doing, I'm always giving the brush movement of it rounding down into the bowl. And so in your colors, you'll get a gentle little streak to your colors that will suggest that as well. Let's go over here. Let's take some of this light pink, reddish light here, maybe even some of this yellow. But let's build up in here a bit more. Right up in here, see that? And you've got to, this time the bowl is quite wide here. It's more narrow because the rose is looking at us a bit more, right? So we'll do that. And let's redefine, or anytime that I feel like I get a little lost, I reset that bowl shadow. The bowl shadow is the most important shadow on your rose. And so if I feel like I've lost it a little bit or I can't find it, I reset it. I reset it every time so I can see it. Now let's just pull down a bit here there's the bottom of the bowl. Right there, okay? Maybe a little warm. I haven't used this Diarylide. I love Diarylide into the rose. Such a pretty, see that warm yellow. It's not super powerful, but it just gives a beautiful warmth to it. Let's put some of that in, and we'll pull in another little light little petal there. Coming in, we'll build a bit more of our light here. Coming in, maybe an edge. Let's darken it down a bit as we come around the corner here towards our shadowy colors. Just push that in. Yeah, push the colors in. Push them in. It causes them to smear in together to what I call they kind of blur into each other. I don't like them to blend too much because that they'll lose their identity, and I want the colors to what makes it pretty is the colors maintain their identity, and if you blend them they start to lose some of that identity, so I want to preserve that. Let's just take a softer little light, maybe an idea of a petal here coming in. Here we go. Let's put just a touch of that little light, and I can draw a petal here coming back around here to this side, see? Just coming around, and it brings that rose at me. Now, do you want to maintain that rose is closed down a little bit? I do like it like that, but you could open it back up. That's your choice, just by taking your dark and swirling it back down and around. Let's get a touch more light here, right out here into the front. Let's redefine take a little bit, maybe even a bit of that Diarylide into that. Redefine, find that bowl again. Where's that bowl? Make sure you don't lose that bowl shadow there at the bottom, because that's what makes the rose pretty, see? That little bowl shadow. Let's put a bit of softness turning right around in there on that one. Just spin a little bit of that color around, and that softens that rose. Let's just soften. I love that little spark of that quinacridone. Leaves a bit of the dark there, but just a little spark pushes that around. It's pretty color. And I do like some of this real darker color here to show up sometimes way down in here towards the bottom. That, it's that dark picks up, shows up around in there. You can see I did it over here. And but I don't like it to be quite as dark as the center. Sometimes I make it a little too dark, but that's kind of pretty right there like that. Just a little touch of that quinacridone right in there. Real kind of pretty. Let's take some softer light color. Let's come right back here. These I generally paint really quick, and they're nothing. So what I imagine is the bowl and then the outside petals, and I do everything as a real whisper. I'm graying down the color here with some of the background that I use, so you can see the color is not quite as light here, right? And we'll gray it down, maybe give a little bit of a light as this pulls this way towards that light, this edge here. Here, touches of that there. But I want the viewer's eye to mostly come up here into the front, and I'm not completely done with those front ones yet. But I want to preserve the bowl, strike some of those real quick petals. I paint these real fast, and if you notice, I don't use as light and as dark. Big thing is as dark a color. I don't use that because that would flatten out the composition. So as these colors head towards this background, they have to become more like the background. So I'll just push on a little bit of light, maybe a bigger forward petal here, coming down this way. And we might even do a little chisel. See, I got that little drawing edge. A little chisel right here to say there's a petal right in there. And maybe a bit more. Maybe there's a petal right here, slight angle coming in. So you can see you could use that chisel edge and draw that. But I don't want to get too much more of an edge than that. Otherwise, it would distract from the painting. Maybe just a bit of the quinacridone here, just to tie those together. Maybe just a hint of it back up in here. See, just a hint of that rose, and that'll keep it softer. As this starts to tack up, not there yet, a little better, we can lighten up maybe a bit more. Get that nice contrast here that we want to have in this front rose there, and where that light is and stuff. Some really nice contrast there. And we were thinking maybe let's get some quinacridone, maybe a little burnt sienna. Now, why burnt sienna? Because burnt sienna is in that background. Maybe a little bit of green with this. Okay, we were thinking maybe a rosebud right out here. Maybe a couple of them together. Just boom, boom. Put a couple of them together. More what we call in design formal. It's fun to study design and how to put objects together. I've been studying design, did an entire huge online class of design, and I just love it, how to put stuff together. We'll do a softer pink with a little bit of this green into it. See how it grays it down? And just an idea of a little rosebud here, maybe a touch brighter red. just to say we had it here. Yeah, maybe there's a little edge of the pink, maybe a little petal that's opened up off of this one right here. Just one or two little marks here, just a little bit lighter here. There we go. Not too much, because we want this one out of the center of interest. There's another one that's right back behind it, but I'm just going to not even going to give it hardly any shape, just a bit of color here. And we'll just let it just kind of sit back there and what we call formal, into a formal arrangement here. Just kind of sit back here. You pick up just a bit of it, maybe, but I could take a touch with that little bit of light and draw an edge to this one here, so this one definitely sits up in front of it, see? So by where you put that edge, how you draw that edge, you give, you put one thing in front of the other, and that's why I always study in the landscapes and everything, edges. And you see me talking about edges and stuff all the time. And why, whether if you want to paint beautiful rose compositions, you better start studying landscapes as well, because those edges are so important. So we'll push just a little more edge right there with that one. Let's get, and I know sometimes, like with this one, I really want you guys to just kind of get into the flow with this. You can see how fast I paint. And sometimes I like to film these videos, so sometimes you'll see me film really slow with you. Sometimes more at a moderate to fast pace like I'm doing now. This is the pace I normally paint at. Now, why do I film or paint this fast? Because if I slow down, I screw it up. And you will too. And I'm being honest with you. And one of the things is, part of the learning process that you go through, and I'm very serious, guys, part of the learning process that you go through is trying to find your way. What are you going to do? And that indecision slows you down, and that slowing you down makes it harder to paint. Okay? There's a certain rhythm and a speed that you get into. And how you're going to get into that? You're going to practice. Now, I have people who write to me and say, oh, I can't do it, I can't. Of course you can't. You can never do it on the first, even the 10th time. And like I told you in the study of roses, on the 30 days of roses, we painted 30 roses in 30 days. Okay? Some of you didn't get the roses, most of you didn't get the roses until you're on your 24th, 25th, 26th rose. It takes that long, to completely understand it, okay? So don't ever say, I can't do it. I don't like students that ever say, I can't do it. That's defeative. You're defeating yourself. And you're just saying, why? Why don't you just stop painting and give up? No. Anybody can do it, but it takes practice. Lots and lots of practice. It's taken me years to get these techniques down that I can teach you here. So I'm going to put a little dark right here, because see that dark edge really causes what was called a simultaneous contrast with this front light, and it causes that front light to look lighter right there. Isn't that kind of pretty? So we'll put this real dark cool of this rose right underneath there, and boom, and we'll flatten this rose out, more of a juvenile one right here, and that's just that's real cold and pretty. Let's put a bit of that right in there. Maybe there's one sitting back up and underneath there. See, and that's kind of a pretty little bit of it. Let's get a warmer little pink here. We'll put that right into the front of the rose here. This little pink color right in there. Maybe, and we'll go a little bit lighter. Maybe not all, but some of these colors. And we'll just pull in an idea of the light. Swirl it around a bit. Not too much, right? We don't need too much on this. The center of interest roses there, they're getting close to done, so the rest of the painting doesn't need that much. here. There we go. That's kind of pretty. Let's draw a little edge right onto the front here. Here, pull down a bit. Put a bit darker right into that front here. Right up in here. Boom. Just leave some of that. Boom. I just love that color right there. And maybe we just take a touch of the warmer. So I was into my cooler, here I'm over to my warmer. I always think if I'm coming forward or up towards my center of interest, I get warmer, right? Get warmer. Let's put just a touch of a light hit right up here, because that's where it's hitting the light. Okay, let's just hit that light right there. That's all we really need. And maybe a bit more light right there. Yeah, we don't need that much. A little bit of flattened down, warmer red right here. These petals are flattened down a bit because they're sitting on the table. Here, push that up and around. Here we go. Just a simple little rose. Little oval shape right up here. Fun little rosebud right up here. Simple. Let's just go real simple, light. Front edge of it here, more of a push this around with my left hand. Yeah, talked to you guys like that before. I use my left hand a lot to smear around, so it's different than my right hand. Here we go. And let's just get a bit of light, just strike a bit of the light right across. That's where the light's hitting it. Maybe idea of a little petal. It doesn't need to be that much. And what really makes it a rosebud more than anything else is you get that nice dark little spinning center right up in here. So I'll get it and see if I pull that out. See how all of a sudden that turns it more into a rosebud, right? Now, before I go any further, it's just like, oh, I like that. I want to redefine some of my shadow over here, and I'm going to be working some leaves, and when I work leaves I usually get some greens going into my painting as well, and so I'm just going to put a little bit of the greens right in there, and that right there is a mistake. It's easy. Yeah. You don't worry. I used to go and have a major falling out, you know. No, it's a mistake. You have a solvent, you have water, I'm just going to clean up some of my brush. You have lots of time. You can just with a damp brush, just kind of work that right there and see how it just takes it out. Boom, it's gone. And so you don't have a massive coronary. I used to have those. Not fun. I'm going to put a little bit of green into some of this. Add some extender to this. I love the greens into some of my flowers here. And especially when I get to this part of the painting. And I'll just add those in. And just a real grade green. It's a beautiful color. Sometimes I make it more of a yellow green into it here. And I'll push a bit of that in. It's just a real pretty color. Let's get a little more yellow into that. Here we go. Now I'll take it and I'll soften it, and this is what I call incorporating the color. I'll take a softer little color, orange or something like that, and I'll incorporate that color. Incorporation means that I'll move the colors together. I don't like it to be completely blended out, but I like to move them together. Now I just rinse some of that green out of my brush, then I'll pinch wipe this off here, pick up a little more light, and let's just reset some of our light right up above that, right into that, and get some of that movement back there into those petals. I don't like that separation too much, so I'm just going to smear that around a bit. Always find that bowl. There we go. That's better. And let's just pull that across. There we go. Little edge here. Little idea of a petal. That's all that needs. See, that's real pretty. And so you just pick up that little soft green there, and I like that. And I put it in there, and I would usually incorporate it with a bit of a softer pink. So I set that right in on top of that green. Now, let's take some green, some burnt sienna. We'll come right down here. Okay. And let's give us a longer stem, maybe an idea of a calyx here. The sepals coming down. Sometimes I'll just make like a little more burnt sienna and just pull out a strike or two. Sometimes I like a few little lines out. You know, here, movement here, right? Let's, put in a idea of a few stem lines and stuff. We're going to put some leaves and stuff, but I like, right now the composition is very focused into here, so I want to start opening it up, loosening it up. This is some of the things our leaves are going to do. But I want to give the idea of some thicker stems, some ideas of movements, little things, little marks out here. I always call this the little brush dance, the marks and stuff that you put out here. You can give it like little thorns, okay? So, I've showed you before in some of these, you just take a little burnt sienna, make a little triangle shape here, a little sharper than that, Dave. Give it the idea of a few thorns and stuff if you want to have that. Okay, we'll take some of this here and move some of this color out here. That's a pretty little strike of green right there. See, that's the impression it's like. And I just blur that out and change it a bit here. And so burnt sienna and the green, I love this color. Let's push a little bit right in here. See, and that makes what we call a found edge. And this, I can blur that off and soften it. See, choom, just like that. But if I leave that super found edge, that gets really a defining point. Edges, edges, edges. And so many times I say edges, edges, edges. And guess what? It's all about edges, right? And so I'll step off here a little bit and leave some dark, and see all of a sudden, and this is another technique you see me use, negative painting, I've made like a lower bottom petal there just by leaving an edge. Does that make sense? And some difference there. Let's put a bit of the green right in here. Work our edges a bit. Soften them out here, right in there, like that. Let's work some of the green right in here. You will have green, blue, and violet. Those are your real darks. You would have a contact shadow real close right up here. Then this back here would be what we call the cast shadow, because the light is coming from the front. So right where it's touching the ground there is where it's the darkest, and that is the contact shadow. So you might have a contact shadow right here, right there. Be a contact shadow right there. There would be a contact shadow right here. Boom. Right there. It's got out a little far there, so I'll just touch it. See? There'd be a contact shadow right in here. And this is where I like to get really quite soft with it, because this is out of my center of interest. So I'll blur that out just a bit there. Okay. And I'm going to build some leaves and some stuff going on there, I could have darker cast shadows here. Let's take a little violet with that. Little extender. I like to paint my shadows a bit more transparent, and so I like to have a little extender in them when I paint them. And I'll just blur this back here so I keep that all kind of lost back up in there. I like that. And so that's a kind of a fun one. I could like that when I have a rose, tilted back there, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I don't think I'll do that. What I'm going to do here, though, before I go too much further, is I had my 3/4 inch brush here. I'm going to take my 3/4 inch brush, some of this light color, let's get a bit of yellow into this as well. And let's streak a bit more. And I like this not to be too wet. See how this color, see how I get this movement and stuff? Now the values are really, really close. So I can get this movement, and then when this starts to dry down, this movement will soften out. And that's what I like. So I get it actually quite a bit of movement into it, and hit some of these lights, tap them around a bit, and when this starts to dry down, it'll dry down. And if you have to, go right through your rose stem there and just put it back on. But this is the alla prima part of it. Get a bit of texture right in there. I just love that. And just push that movement around and just kind of blur that right in there as it gets up towards that rose. But see that and chunky light color coming in there? I like that kind of stuff. And I have this feeling that that's going to look pretty good in that frame. Yeah, that'll work. But it's if I don't break the frame. No. Now, what I want to do before I get going too far here is let's get some of these leaves out here. So, and I love my leaves to be burnt siennas and greens, and then I'll come back through and lighten some and darken some. But I'll start to do some of the initial drawing and of a leaf here. Oval shapes, a little wider. Oval shapes will flatten this one out. So it's going to pick up some of that light. See how it's picking up that light? I'm just going to let that happen there. And we'll add some more greens back here, more movements and stuff. Maybe a smaller one right out here. Just some of that green, right? Off of this stem here, you can, the stems will carry leaves as well. Usually in the roses in sets of 3, depending on the rose, but sets of little 3 and stuff. And you kind of imagine it sitting flat on the surface here, so I could put a couple really right here. Let's just do that. Drop one in there, and maybe take that one back a bit. See, I can just push that in and out. Push some of that heavy color there. And you can, it's what I like about, if you have a lot of color, you can erase something really easy. So we'll flatten this out a bit more here. And drop in some ideas of some other little leaves and stuff going on. Burnt sienna and green. Okay, and let's drop one, maybe one right out to here. That is your more of the traditional shape. We'll drop one here that is making the shape of the 3. And a lot of roses grow out in, the leaves grow out in these shapes of 3. So I'll add them in the shapes of 3. Let's just blur off some of those edges here. There, and I'll lighten and darken some of those here. But work around the composition. Add just some strokes of green, some back strokes here. Maybe we'll add an idea of 1 or 2 coming off this way. But these are further into the back. So what I'll do is I'll take my hand, make sure it's kind of clean, and just blur them off a bit like this. And see, that allows, and I'll wipe my finger and pull back in. You see me do this in the 30 Days of Roses a lot, and it blurs the roses, those leaves, and see, it sends them further to the back. And if I keep these edges right up here real clean and nice, there, I get a powerful leaf and then a real soft leaf. Pretty easy, and that's what I like to do. Let's just drop this one in like that. We could have a smaller one coming off here. Maybe just an edge of that, because you'll pick up different edges. Maybe this one's got a little rolled edge. We'll see. It's a lot of paint, so it's going to take a minute. I'm going to thin this out so it works really thin. And again, let's come back here, shape up a leaf that we kind of want to have here. Boom. Okay, let that set just a second. Take your finger, wipe it off there. lightly touch it and pull down and blur off that edge. See? Just makes such a pretty little edge. And it goes right with what's happening here. Maybe that one is a back one. Here. Boom, just like that. Here. And now let's change this color up. It's getting a lot of the same. I'm going to come back and paint more colors into them. We're getting a lot of the same. So let's add some more yellow, maybe a little more Diarylide, maybe a little of this pink, a little bit of light. Here, a little green. Make a different color. Yeah, that's a pretty color, softer color. Some leaves are going to be lighter in color, softer, different. Let's put some of that light right up in here. There we go. Boom, just like that. So you got a lighter green here. Maybe hit right here, a lighter little green leaf. Maybe a nice light green leaf coming right here. Just, yeah, that's just kind of pretty. And you can add shadows to them. Here, I'll just take a little bit back to some of my dark, maybe a shadow line, maybe a back little bit of shadow here. This pushes that leaf right in front of that light edge of the rose there. You can use and make a little a stem line. I many times will take the light little edge that we have here, and I'll put out a light line, and then I'll paint it into position with a bit of the dark here. Soften that into position so you get an idea of a little stem here. Little green, little white into some of this yellow here. Just like that. And you can add little stem lines and to it. And if they get if they're too much, like that one's just a bit too much, I'll just take a little bit of dark and paint right up by them. Maybe a little light, little dark here. Paint these right together here. Boom. Here we go. Touch a bit of that right there. But, overall, I could lighten some of these leaves a touch more. And I like them. I like the leaves, especially like right through here. Okay, you have real light flowers, and your eye bounces between the flowers. And so we use what is called a bridge, the leaves to the bridge. So what I do is I bring the value of the leaves. If I feel like you see rose, 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 instead of your eye flowing through it, it's called value flow, part of color theory. And so what you got to do is study color theory. No, what you got to do is bring the values of the leaves to the roses a little closer together, and your eye will flow through the light as opposed to jump between the roses. So I'll lighten this up just a bit here. Boom. There. And so when you see, now watch what happens on this one here. As I lighten this edge up here, your eye is going to flow more from this value right through there like that, see? And I want to leave a bit of that dark, but I want a touch of that light to come through. So maybe we'll push a touch of light right in through here, see? And what that light does is it bridges right between the two there and brings these roses forward. So, and I don't always know exactly what to bring forward or push back, but I know this one right here, it would actually be better if I lighten it up a bit more. So I'll just take a little bit more light and push onto that leaf, and it could actually be a little bit lighter. So I'll make a lighter green here and drop in a bit more light. Now I want to leave some of that shadow. And you'll see a lot of, impressionistic or what we call representational artists will take their rose leaves, cut them in half, and make a light and dark on them. And it's You know, it doesn't always happen that way in nature, but it's a beautiful way to paint them because they capture both the light and the dark of the painting, you know. So it's a nice way to paint them. And it works. I'm going to put a little more green into this. And, you know, you could have a brighter blue-green into this would be pretty as well. I'm using a lot of yellow green, but you could very easily put a touch of the blue-green here. Let me show you. And that's a real pretty, you know, kind of a light green, even put a little yellow into that. But it's a little cooler of a color of a green, see? And so we could put some of that coolness back into some of these leaves, you know, do like a, you know, a Mondstadt or something like that that would paint those cools. A little bit of cool color into that. See, that's a pretty little green, little cooler green here into some of that. Just pop some of that green, cool green into there. Yeah, that works. I could use a touch more light right up to the front here. Let me push a bit of that right in there. That's kind of pretty. And keep that. But I could use a touch more light, warmer light. A little bit of green in it. Dirty brush green. That's kind of neat. Push some of that color. Needs to be that bigger strike, though. I like that. Oh, and, you know, this is the other. Get brave. You see me use this all the time. One of the best things to do something like this is that knife. Is just to grab that knife. See, then just work those edges, soften those edges out. You can see how even, you know, let some of these skips come out here like this, because that's just nice interest moving out and away, and they will dry down. They will dry down and disappear a little bit, you know. So, yeah, let some of those skips happen there. But yeah, let's push a bit of this cooler. I mean, a little bit more of the shadow. Maybe a bit of the green into this as well. Not quite as light. Let's push that right into there. We'll leave that deeper shadow, but we'll push the light out of our composition, out of those roses a bit more. Here we go. See, and this is what I like. So then I can come back here and hit across the front, just take the marks and cover up some of that. But I'll look for that. See, so here's that beautiful green burnt sienna here. Beautiful color. Thin it out just a bit, and let's just push a bit of that. Look at that. See that kind of greenish tone in there. It's real pretty. Different. Let that sit back there. Here. There we go. And see, I'm just, now what I'm doing is, and this is adding a subtle interest to the painting, see? And that's what I'm working on. Now, maybe I want to take a bit more burnt sienna in that green, maybe even the touch of this blue-green we had here, and push that back up over here, and increase some of the green in my painting right out over there, see? And I might, you know, go very impressionistic and just take some of the green and the red back here and just push something right back up over here that just looks like something. What is it? I don't know. It's something back there, see? It's something back there. It doesn't have to be anything. That's the impressionism of it, you know? Doesn't have to be anything back there other than color. Just you start to look for the color going through, see? And soft color. So here I'll take this, let's soften this out and just push some of that color back through there, see? Back up through there. I like that. Maybe I'll take a bit of my reds, burnt sienna and green, little green, so it's not too powerful. Thin it way out, see, and just find some areas to pull some of this color out. See, and that's the impressionism of it that I just love. And I will even but just put marks. So, maybe a boom, maybe this mark comes out here like that, see? And it breaks up a solid area of color. So, and this is what you start to do towards the final. And this hasn't taken long? We're an hour and 15 minutes into this painting. And so it's going really well. So you can, sit down and play a little bit. Look at that red, pull that out. Maybe hit that highlight right there with that. And just so you start to see some of that color, see? And, maybe that darker burnt sienna green that we had, maybe even a little red violet in it, but, maybe you come back in here and you hit a little bit of that shadow that's there onto that, maybe break up areas with some other, marks of color. And this took me a long time to get brave enough to do this kind of stuff and leave that mark of color, or that little broken line of color. That took me a long time to get that brave. Let's go back to some of this burnt sienna right in there. But see how that breaks some of that all up? I can take just soft little touches of it, maybe push a bit of it back here as a mark, and that gives a real soft little area, advances that rose a bit, but that's okay. Look to that. I know if I come in here with this dark like this, I can advance this rose, that back rose back there, maybe and I look for a few marks. Maybe it's just a mark of color back here, see? Just boom. And that just helps it. Maybe I see a little bit more of that red right in there. That red. And it just advances that part of the rose. Do you want to flatten out the petals? You could flatten out the petal there. I can look at the rose and say, in other words, do I want to flatten this petal out just a little bit more, which will cause it to look like it lays down a bit more. And you pull more directly in. Pull more directly in, and that will lay the petal down. Make it look like it's sitting on the table. Here it's raised up slightly, but you pull more directly in. And that sets that back. There we go. Just real soft. Do I want to I hit that with my finger at the end. Do I leave that or do I just take that back out? Yeah. But that all works. I like that. Maybe another little strike of light color right across the front here. And this is where I would decide, do I want textures? Maybe I want a nice textured mark right there. And if I feel like I took out my shadow too much, I just take a little shadow and lift off. Wipe your brush, lift off, and put that mark back on there, see? So there's all kinds of beautiful ways to do that. And it's a lot of fun, and it plays it. And it's what I tell all my students all the time, guys. It's a board and a little bit of paint. I have probably used 15 cents worth of paint. I have enough here to paint several more paintings. And you can save those. You get these little souffle cups. You can save your paint inside those, if you want. But I think that's kind of pretty. That's kind of a nice, pretty thing. I might get a little more brave with some color. Right? I like the negative space, and this draws your eye in there. The question is, do I get a little more brave? Do I take maybe some sienna, some yellow, some of my greens, siennas, reds? Do I push in and see how this is gonna? So do I push in like this, and that causes that color? It causes that light, your eye, to move through the light a little different. You see what I'm saying? Boom, 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 boom. So if I like that, which I do, and if you don't like it, don't do it. I kind of like that. So I'm going to go boom with a bit of yellow right here, and then go, no, I'm going to soften that out. We'll take some light, take a little extender, we'll drop it into some of this, just grab some of this, dirty it up. Love the dirty of the color, see? And just leave that light there and just pull through some of that, leave some of that mark. Let's grab just a bit more of that right in here. A bit more yellow, burnt sienna, green here. Maybe a little bit heavier. Boom, right in here. Boom, just do that. Just go for it there. Now let's get just a touch more light. Work from the light here out. See, I just, and see that it doesn't have to be an object. It could be, strokes like what I'm doing there. Just colorful strokes. Little light yellow. Push that right in there. Mark that through. Boom. Maybe a touch more light. Right out like that. Boom, coming through. Now, so we'll see some of that greenness. I do want to see, I want to get braver, burnt sienna. A little burnt sienna. A little more burnt sienna and green. Okay, let's get a little braver. Boom, right in through there. I love that color coming through here. There, like that. Just see how that pushes your eye. It's a softer little mark, but it pushes your eye here back up towards those roses, which is what I like here. Do you see? That's the impressionism that I like to do. And let me tell you, there's 1,000 ways to do it, and your job is to just experiment and play. That's what we do. We experiment and we play. Let's put just a touch of that through light up here. Now that will dry down. It looks really light, but you got to remember it's going to dry a value darker, and that's going to make it about perfect. So that picks up some of those tones in the outside edges of the frame, which is what I really want, pulls that right in there. I might put a deeper little mark of it right up over here, like I have over here, and that would work as well, with that. And so let's just do that. A deeper little mark. And then I think we pretty much got it. It's a nice little, fun little painting, right? And I paint these things and they sell really well for me. And hopefully they sell well for you. And here we go. Let's push that right in there. There. Just a little bit of that movement right there. It doesn't disrupt from here because I got a lot of light dark right in there. So it's not disrupting from there. But it's a nice one. Now, so let's just take one last look here with this. Yeah, I like that. See, it picks up those tones, those outer tones of the frame, and it works really, really well. It leaves a lot of negative space right in here, but we have a lot of movement that helps that negative space. So here we got a 16 by 20 painting done in just a little over an hour and 20 minutes, and hour 23 minutes 30 seconds. And got my monitors right here that I watch everything, and it's kind of a nice look, for this. Do you want to make the leaves any lighter? I could have, maybe this is just little stuff to look at. And sometimes, guys, don't make that decision right away. Maybe wait till tomorrow. Take a look at it tomorrow. You don't want, if you're painting alla prima, and this is what I'm painting here right now, alla prima, which means I'm painting it and finishing it here all in one setting. So, but you don't, maybe a little lighter Hansa in that too. But we don't want to make huge, if you're coming back the next day with an alla prima painting, you don't want to make huge changes with it because you could actually destroy it and make it look stiffer. So, you just make subtle changes to it, small changes to it, additions and stuff like that. But You know, some artists say you can't do it. I do it all the time. Because it's okay to come back and take a look at it. And I do get that from a lot of wildlife painters do that. And it's okay. And they're so much better than me, and if they do it, then it's okay to do it. So I'm just going to lighten up a few of these here. Here we go. Hit just a couple of edges, and I'll leave those others, and maybe a touch or two of a darker mark. Very right in through here to redefine that stem. Maybe a little mark or two of the some more. I love traveling stems and stuff, and little things going out. I like that kind of little marks and little edges and interest and stuff like that. I like that kind of stuff. Anyway, so there you go. So there's an idea of that. This could be a touch lighter here, but overall, I kind of like how that whole thing kind of works together there. This will dry down. This is very wet. It's really thick paint. It'll dry down a little bit, and I think that will be enough. It'll all work. You could take some of that dark up there, but I like how this just works through. And, you know, so I have that little edge there. You could pick up little edges if you want. Some of you really like contrast, and you have some more. I like softness to them, and so, you know, I like how the main flower painted there, and I like its main flower and its supportive flower here, and those three right there I really like. And that's enough, okay? So I'm going to be doing a lot more of this. Now, I promised to show you, you know, a little bit of the blending part of this thing. So I'm going to be doing, and I think the best way to do that is, you know, you see here where you can come back and work it and stuff, but I want to show you how to do acrylic blending with the solvent. Now, there is some that I've done there, solvent blending. And if you look up at the, you know, you go up to the search bar, go to my channel, then go up in the search bar and put whatever it is you're looking for in there, and the videos will come up. So there's one in there about solvent blending, and how to use water in the blending with the acrylics, even after the acrylics have dried. I show that. I'll do some short little video, you know, things for it as well, because again, that one right there, that one, as soon as I varnish it, man, the colors just come alive. But like on that one with the landscape, I used a variety of solvent blending, wet on wet blending, halftone blending. Halftone's another one that's very important. There's so many different ways to paint with the new modern acrylics. Not all acrylics are the same. And I'll say it again and again and again, guys. Not all acrylics are the same. And some of you people, you know, some of you write to me and say, oh, I can't do it with my acrylics. Well, you may be using the wrong acrylics. Some of those acrylics are made to dry fast and hard and not do any of these. These acrylics are ones that I was the chemist on. I built the system. And I built it to do exactly what it is that I'm doing here, so that you can manipulate it to do all different kinds of stuff, okay? All right, and you know, you put this out like this, and no one's going to be able to tell if this is acrylics or oil. They won't know if it's acrylic or oil, okay? So, you know, that's when you have a really nice, because they're the same pigments, like I showed you a couple videos ago on the pigments. We use exactly the same pigments that are in oils, and so you can't, you know, you can't tell. But anyway, have some fun with it. Give it a try. These are fun little things, and it just takes a little over an hour, and you get a painting like this, okay? All right, and I'll put out some more. I've got Dashing Through the Snow coming, so we have some winter paintings coming, some more bird paintings and animal portraits, and, you know, and I got to decide what to do with that. Everything's reversed, so I gotta decide what to do with that. That one there too, okay? All right, guys, thanks very much, and I'll see you guys later. Hi, you. Come here. Oh, you're a good girl. You're so good girl.